The office was quiet when they walked in. Not the polite quiet of a professional space between meetings. The specific, loaded quiet of a room that has just understood something is wrong. 31 employees of Mensah-Darko Interiors looked up from their screens. Some slowly. Some all at once. But every single one of them looked, because the man who had just walked through the front door of the company he used to own half of, the man who had signed his name off those walls 2 years ago in a divorce settlement he called the worst day of his life, had walked back in, with his new wife on his arm, smiling. The kind of smile that is not happiness. The kind that is announcement. My name is Adaeze Mensah-Darko. I am 38 years old. I built this company from a single contract and a borrowed laptop in 2012, in a one-bedroom apartment in Accra where the ceiling leaked when it rained, and I put a bucket under my desk and kept working. I built it into the most respected interior design firm in Ghana, with offices in Accra, Kumasi and Lagos, 44 staff across 3 locations, and a client list that included 3 government ministries, 2 international hotel chains, and the kind of private residential projects that appeared in architectural magazines. I built it with my hands, my vision, my specific stubborn refusal to stop when the work was hard. And then I made one mistake. I married the man who was now standing in my reception area with his 26-year-old wife, looking around the office he used to walk through like he owned it, because for 7 years he did own half of it, with the expression of someone who has come to prove a point. He had no idea what point was about to be proven. Stay with me, because what happened in this office on that Tuesday morning, and what walked out of these doors before noon, is the kind of story that changes how you understand the word worth. Subscribe now. Because at Tales of Tears African, we never waste your time, and this story will not waste a single second of yours. His name was Mensah-Darko. He was 42 years old, tall, broad-shouldered, with the specific physical confidence of a man who had been told he was impressive for so long that he had stopped questioning it. He dressed well. He had always dressed well. It was the first thing she had noticed about him when they met at an industry event in 2013. And he carried himself with the easy authority of someone who had spent his adult life walking into rooms and being noticed. He was a property developer, or rather, he had been a property developer before the 2018 market collapse had taken most of his portfolio and revealed that the empire he presented to the world was built on credit, optimism, and the specific dangerous confidence of a man who confused momentum with foundation. When the collapse came, it was Adaeze's company that held them together. She did not say this out loud. She had never said it out loud, but the numbers said it, in the income statements, and the tax filings, and the quarterly reports that Kwame had signed alongside her for 7 years without fully understanding what he was signing. Mensah-Darko Interiors had been profitable every year since 2015. Mensah-Darko's property business had been profitable for exactly 2 of those years. The rest of the time, the interior design firm's revenue had subsidized the property business's debt service, the staff salaries of a company that produced nothing for 18 months, the lifestyle they maintained because Kwame believed that looking successful was the same as being successful. She had not resented this while it was happening. She had loved him. That was the fact she had spent 2 years trying to make peace with. Not the betrayal, not the divorce, not the financial damage. The love. The specific, real, undeniable love she had carried for a man who had been looking past her for years. The divorce was finalized in March 2022. Kwame had fought it, not because he wanted the marriage. She understood that clearly by then, because he wanted the company. Half of Mensah-Darko Interiors, based on the joint ownership structure they had registered in 2016, when she had trusted him enough to put his name on the thing she had built. The court had been specific. The company predated the joint registration. The founding documents, the original contracts, the intellectual property, all of it carried her name, and her name alone. Kwame was entitled to a financial settlement based on his documented contributions during the joint registration period. His documented contributions were minimal. He received 12% of the company's assessed value at the time of the settlement. He received it in cash because Adaeze had taken a loan against her own shares rather than give him equity in what she had built. He signed. He called her the worst name he knew on the steps of the courthouse. He told her she would regret it. She had gone home, put her daughters to bed, Ama, 9, and Efua, 7, and sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea going cold, and she had not cried. She had thought about the leaked ceiling in the one-bedroom apartment in 2012, about the bucket under the desk, about the specific patient quality of continuing when continuing is the only option available. Then she had gone to bed. She had not regretted it, not once, not until the Tuesday morning 8 months ago, when Kwame had called her office and asked, not requested, asked with the specific familiar assumption that she would comply, if he could come in to discuss a potential collaboration. She had said yes. Because she was a professional, and he was a former business partner, and because she was, at her core, the kind of woman who believed that people deserved the opportunity to show who they had become. He had shown her exactly who he had become. He had walked into her office on that first visit with a proposal for a joint development project, a residential complex in East Legon that he claimed to have secured funding for. He had laid the documents on her conference table with the confidence of a man presenting a gift. He had explained that Mensah-Darko Interiors would handle the interior design contracts, providing the aesthetic credibility that would attract premium buyers, while his newly registered company, Darko Developments Limited, would manage the construction and sales side. The proposal was structured so that Darko Developments received 60% of the project revenue. Mensah-Darko would receive 40%. She had read every page. She had asked 3 questions. All 3 revealed that the funding he claimed to have secured was conditional, dependent on her company's involvement as a credibility anchor. Without Mensah-Darko, there was no project. Without the project, there was no funding. Without the funding, Kwame Darko had nothing but a registered company name and a proposal document. She had said she would think about it. She had thought about it for 2 weeks. She had declined. She had sent a formal letter through her office manager, professional in tone, citing scheduling conflicts and strategic alignment concerns. Kwame had not responded to the letter. He had responded 6 weeks later by registering his new marriage on his social media accounts, with photographs taken at a private ceremony in Dubai, of him and a young woman named Serwa Bempong Darko, 26 years old, with the specific, curated beauty of someone who had been photographed enough to know how to exist in front of a camera. The caption on the first photo said, "Upgraded to the woman who sees my vision. Onwards." Adaeze had seen the post because Ama had seen it first, on a school friend's phone, and had come home with the specific, careful expression of a 9-year-old who has been given information she doesn't know how to carry. Mama. Daddy got married. Adaeze had held her daughter for a long time. Then she had made dinner. Then she had called her lawyer. Not about the marriage, about the East Legon project. Because while Kwame had been in Dubai getting married, his company, Darko Developments Limited, had submitted a proposal to the East Legon Municipal Authority for the same residential complex project, using Mensah-Darko Interiors' name in the supporting documentation without authorization. Her name, her company's name, her credibility, used without her permission to secure a government approval he had no right to pursue. Her lawyer had sent a cease and desist within 48 hours. Kwame had complied. The project had stalled. And now, 8 months later, he was standing in her reception area with his new wife on his arm, looking around the office with the expression of a man who has arrived somewhere to deliver a message. But that was not the worst part. The worst part was the envelope under his arm. Adaeze was in the second-floor conference room when her office manager, Abena Agyemang, appeared in the doorway. Abena was 34 years old and had been with the company for 6 years, and had the specific, composed efficiency of someone who managed crises without escalating them. She was the kind of person whose face told you exactly how serious a situation was without her saying a word. Her face, in the doorway, said, "Serious." "Mr. Darko is downstairs," she said. "With a guest." Adaeze looked up from the project brief she had been reviewing. "Did he have an appointment?" "No." A silence. "He says he has documents for you. He says it's urgent." Abena paused. "He brought his wife." Adaeze set down the brief. She felt the specific tightening in her chest that Kwame's name always produced. Not fear, not anger, but the precise emotional preparation of someone who has learned to brace before impact. She stood. She smoothed her jacket. Deep teal, well cut, the kind of blazer that fit like intention. "Tell him I'll be down in 5 minutes," she said. She went to the window first. The Accra morning was doing what it always did. The specific, saturated brightness of a city that had decided to be alive at full volume. The street below moved with its usual beautiful chaos. She looked at it for exactly 30 seconds. Then she went downstairs. Kwame was standing in the center of the reception area. He had dressed for this. That was the first thing she registered. The suit was new, the shoes were new, the watch was the kind that announced itself across a room. He had dressed the way people dress for performances. Serwa stood beside him. She was exactly what the photograph suggested. Young, carefully put together, her dress expensive, and her expression the specific mixture of curiosity and performed confidence of someone who has been brought somewhere to be seen and is doing her best to be seen correctly. She was also, Adaeze noticed with the specific quiet accuracy of a woman who had dressed herself on nothing for years, wearing a dress that was not quite the right size, 2 centimeters too short in the waist, adjusted incorrectly. Bought for the image, not fitted for the body. Adaeze noticed this the way she noticed all fabric, automatically, without judgment. She looked at Kwame. "Kwame," she said. Her voice was level, professional. The voice she used in boardrooms and contract negotiations in every space where the temperature needed to be controlled. "This is unexpected." "Adaeze." He smiled. The smile. She had spent 7 years learning to read that smile, and she read it now the way you read weather. The specific practiced warmth of a man who is about to do something he believes will hurt. "You remember, Serwa." "We haven't met," Adaeze said. "Of course." He placed his hand on Serwa's back in the proprietary way of someone who is using another person as a prop. "My wife. Serwa, this is Adaeze, my ex." Serwa extended her hand. Her grip was soft. "I've heard so much," she said. "I'm sure you have," Adaeze said pleasantly. Around them, the office had gone still in the way that offices go still when something is happening that everyone can see and no one is supposed to acknowledge. Keyboards had quietly stopped. Phone conversations had quietly ended. 31 people were paying very close attention to the reception area while looking at their screens. "Can I help you with something?" Adaeze said. Kwame lifted the envelope from under his arm. "I have a business proposal," he said. "A formal one this time, with legal documentation. I wanted to deliver it personally." She looked at the envelope. "You could have used the front desk," she said. "I wanted to present it myself." He was still smiling. "And I thought Serwa should see the company. She's been so curious about it, since she's going to be involved." Adaeze was very still. "Involved?" she said. "Serwa has a background in hospitality design," Kwame said. "She studied in London. She has ideas that I think would complement what you do here." The smile did not waver. "I thought we could discuss a possible integration, a formal partnership, Mensah-Darko and Darko developments working together with fresh creative input." He looked around the office. at the clean lines of the space, the work pinned to the walls, the project boards, the evidence of everything she had built. This place has always needed new energy. The office was completely silent. This place had always needed new energy. The place she had built from a leaked ceiling and a borrowed laptop. The place that had carried his name on its door for 7 years because she had loved him enough to share what she had made. Adaeze looked at the envelope. She looked at Kwame. She looked at Serwa, who was looking at the office with the specific expression of someone who has been told she is about to receive something and is deciding where to put it. "Come upstairs," Adaeze said. Her voice had not changed, not even slightly. That was the thing about Adaeze Mensah-Darko that people who had never sat across a negotiating table from her always underestimated. She did not raise her voice when she was at her most dangerous. She lowered it. The second-floor conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Adaeze's favorite view of Accra, the specific textured skyline of a city building itself in real time, the cranes and the color and the beautiful insistence of it. She had chosen this office specifically for that view. She had sat in this room for hundreds of meetings, client presentations, contract reviews, the specific, focused work of building something year by year. She sat at the head of the table. Kwame and Serwa sat across from her. Abena placed water glasses on the table and stood near the door. Kwame opened the envelope. He placed 3 documents on the table. "This is the proposal," he said. "Darko Developments is in advanced negotiation for 3 residential projects in Greater Accra. Combined value, approximately 80 million cedis. I want Mensah-Darko as the interior design partner on all 3. It's a significant contract." He slid the first document toward her. "In exchange, I'm proposing that Serwa joins the Mensah-Darko creative team in an advisory capacity, credited on all 3 projects." Adaeze looked at the document. She did not pick it up. "And the other 2 documents?" she said. Kwame's smile shifted slightly. Something beneath the performance. "The second document is a revised shareholder proposal," he said. "Given the scale of the collaboration, I think it's appropriate for Darko Developments to take an equity stake in Mensah-Darko, a minority position, 15%, in exchange for bringing these contracts to the table." Adaeze looked at the second document. She did not pick it up. "And the third?" she said. Kwame paused. For the first time since he walked in, the performance faltered. Just slightly. The smile held, but the eyes behind it showed something. The specific, tightly contained anxiety of someone who is about to play their strongest card and is not entirely certain it is strong enough. He slid the third document across the table. "I had a conversation recently with an investor named Mr. Achiampong," Kwame said. "Daniel Achiampong. He holds a 49% stake in the East Legon Development Consortium." He paused. "He is also, I discovered recently, the holder of a promissory note that was signed in 2020 by the founding entity of Mensah-Darko Interiors." Adaeze's eyes went to the third document. She picked it up. She read it. The room was very quiet. Serwa looked at her husband. Kwame leaned forward. "In 2020, you used the company's founding equity as collateral for a short-term financing arrangement," he said. "The terms of that arrangement included a clause that permitted the note holder to convert to equity in the event of default." He paused. "The note was paid, I know that, but the conversion clause was never formally dissolved in the company's founding documents." Adaeze read the document. She read it carefully. She set it down. "What are you saying, Kwame?" she said. Her voice was quiet, absolutely steady. "I'm saying that Mr. Achiampong is willing to assign his interest in that clause to Darko Developments Limited," Kwame said, "which would give me standing to pursue a legal conversion of that note to equity." He paused. 15%. The same number I'm offering you voluntarily in this proposal. I can take it the difficult way, or you can give it to me the easy way." The smile returned. Full, confident, performed. I'm giving you the choice because we have history, Adaeze. I would rather we be partners than adversaries. The room was absolutely still. Serwa was looking at the table. She had stopped looking around the office. She had the expression of someone who has been brought to a place and has only now understood the actual purpose of the visit. Adaeze looked at the document for a long moment. Then she looked at Kwame. "Who is your lawyer?" she said. "Barrister Adaeze," he said. "He reviewed all 3 documents." "And Mr. Achiampong," she said. "When did you meet him?" 3 months ago, Kwame said, "through a mutual contact." "And he shared the details of a private financing arrangement between himself and my company with you," she said. "He shared information about a note he holds," Kwame said. "That's his right." Adaeze stood. She picked up the 3rd document. She walked to the window. She looked at the Accra skyline. She stood there for 11 seconds. Abena, still at the door, watched her boss's back with the focused attention of someone who has worked for a person long enough to read stillness as language. She had seen Adaeze stand at that window before difficult phone calls, before contract negotiations that everyone said she would lose, before every significant decision she had made in 6 years. The stillness always meant the same thing. Not uncertainty, preparation. Adaeze turned back to the table. "Kwame," she said, "I need you to listen to me carefully." He leaned back in his chair with the expression of someone who has delivered his argument and is waiting for the other side to capitulate. "The promissory note you are referring to was issued in June 2020, she said. "It was paid in full in November 2020. The repayment included a clause, Article 7, subsection C of the original financing agreement, that upon full settlement, all conversion rights attached to the note were extinguished permanently and irrevocably." She paused. "That extinguishment was filed with the Registrar General's Department in December 2020. It is a matter of public record." Kwame's expression did not change immediately. It took 3 seconds. Barrister Adaeze reviewed a copy of the note, Adaeze said. "He did not review the full financing agreement, which contains Article 7, and he did not check the Registrar General's filings for December 2020. She set the document back on the table. "I know this because if he had done either of those things, he would have told you that what you are proposing is legally impossible." Silence. Kwame stared at the document. "Mr. Achiampong has no assignable interest," she said. "He has not had one since November 2020. Whatever he told you incorrectly. Or he told you knowing it was incorrect, in which case you may wish to have a conversation with him about that." The conference room was completely still. Serwa had both hands flat on the table. She was looking at her husband. And it was the look not of a new wife watching her husband do business, but of a woman watching someone she has just realized she does not fully know. "The first 2 documents," Adaeze said. She slid them back across the table toward Kwame. "The project proposal and the equity proposal. I decline both. Mensah-Darko does not take external equity from individuals we have not vetted through our formal partnership process. And our current project pipeline does not have capacity for new residential contracts in the next 18 months. She paused. "You are welcome to submit a formal proposal through our business development intake process. It will be reviewed in the standard timeline." Kwame's jaw was tight. The smile was completely gone. "Adaeze, I think we are finished here," she said. But that was not the moment the room changed. The moment the room changed was what happened next. Adaeze looked at Serwa, directly, not with hostility, with the specific honest attention of one woman looking at another. "Serwa," she said, You studied interior design in London. Serwa looked up, surprised to be addressed. Yes, she said. Central St. Martin's, 2 years. Hospitality track? Yes. Do you have a portfolio? Serwa glanced at Kwame, then back at Adaeze. I have work from my studies, she said carefully, and some freelance projects from the last year. Send it to Abena, Adaeze said. She looked at her office manager. Abena, give Mrs. Darko the business development email. Abena, without any visible surprise, produced a card and placed it in front of Serwa. Kwame stared at his ex-wife. We review submitted portfolios on the first Monday of every month, Adaeze said to Serwa. If your work meets our standard, you will be contacted for a conversation, on merit, like everyone else who has worked here. She paused. That is the only offer on this table today. Serwa looked at the card. She picked it up. Thank you, she said quietly. Kwame pushed back his chair. He gathered the documents. His movements were controlled, too controlled, the specific economy of motion of someone managing an emotion they refused to display in public. He stood. He looked at Adaeze. You think you've won something, he said. His voice was low. I haven't won anything, she said. I've just declined something that wasn't valid. She looked at him. Kwame, you spent 7 years inside this company. You watched it grow. You were here for every difficult year and every good one. She paused. You know what it took. You know who built it. She held his gaze. Go build something. Not on the back of what I made. Something yours. You're capable of it. You just have to stop looking for shortcuts through my work. He said nothing. He walked to the door. At the door, he stopped. He did not turn around. The projects I mentioned, he said. The 80 million. Those are real. I have the funding. I know, she said. I know, because one of the investors in that consortium called my office 3 weeks ago to ask if Mensah-Darko was involved, because they had seen my name in your preliminary documents. She paused. I told them we were not involved. They reduced their commitment by 30%. She paused again. You needed my name on those projects, Kwame. You needed my credibility. That's why you came here today. Not to offer me something. To try to take something. She was quiet for a moment. I understand the difference. Kwame walked out. His footsteps went down the stairs. The front door opened and closed. The office, which had been holding its collective breath for 40 minutes, exhaled. Serwa was still sitting at the conference table. She had not stood. She was looking at the card in her hand. Adaeze sat back down. She poured water into a glass. She slid one towards Serwa. Serwa looked up. I didn't know about the note, she said. The legal strategy. He told me we were coming to present a partnership proposal. Adaeze looked at her. I know, she said. He brought me here to... Serwa stopped. She looked at the conference room. At the walls, the project boards, the evidence of the company she had walked into as a prop. He wanted me to see you lose, she said quietly. Yes, Adaeze said. Serwa was quiet for a moment. I'm sorry, she said. You don't need to apologize for him, Adaeze said. You didn't make his choices. Serwa looked at the card again. The portfolio offer, she said. Was that real? Everything I say in this building is real, Adaeze said. It is the only policy I have ever had. Serwa put the card in her bag. She stood. She was 26 years old, and she had been brought to a place to serve a purpose she had not fully understood, and she was leaving with the specific private reckoning of someone who has just learned something important about the person they married. She looked at Adaeze. The dress, she said. The teal blazer. Did you make that? Adaeze looked down at her jacket. My team made it, she said. We do some in-house pieces. It's incredible, Serwa said. Simple. Honest. Adaeze nodded. Send the portfolio, she said. I mean it. Serwa walked out. Abena closed the conference room door after Serwa left. She stood with her back against it for a moment. Then she looked at Adaeze. The office heard everything, she said. I know, Adaeze said. They're going to want to talk about it. Tell them there's nothing to talk about, Adaeze said. Tell them a former partner came with a proposal that didn't meet our standards and was declined. That's all it was. She picked up her water glass. Then tell Karama I need him in here in 20 minutes. I want to look at the Akiampong note filing again. Abena nodded. She paused at the door. The part where you offered his wife a job, she said. Not a question, not a criticism. The specific, careful observation of someone who has worked closely with a person long enough to recognize when something is more than it appears. I offered her a portfolio review, Adaeze said. That is not the same thing. Is there a difference? Adaeze looked at the window. She studied at Central St. Martin's, she said. She is 26 years old, and she is already being used as furniture by the person who was supposed to see her. She paused. Yes, there is a difference. Abena left. Adaeze sat alone in the conference room for 4 minutes. She looked at the Accra skyline. She thought about a one-bedroom apartment with a leaking ceiling, about a bucket under a desk, about the specific, patient quality of building something when the only resource available is the refusal to stop. Then she picked up her phone. She called her lawyer. Barrister Efua Asante Boateng was 50 years old and had been practicing commercial law in Accra for 23 years and had the specific, contained precision of someone for whom legal language was not professional vocabulary, but a native tongue she had spoken since before she could fully articulate why. She answered on the second ring. Kwame came, Adaeze said. A brief silence. The Acheampong note, Efua said. Yes. I expected it, Efua said. I've been watching the registrar filings. Darko Developments registered an interest inquiry on the note reference 3 weeks ago. A pause. How did he present it? As leverage, Adaeze said, wrapped in a partnership proposal. And Acheampong? He clearly gave Kwame an incomplete picture of the arrangement. Or a deliberately misleading one, Efua said. Daniel Akiampong has been in financial difficulty since the Tema port development collapsed last year. He's been looking for convertible assets. A pause. I need to make some calls. There's a possibility Akiampong has been shopping that note to multiple parties, representing the conversion clause as active. Adaeze was very still. If he has been doing that, she said, then he has been misrepresenting an extinguished instrument, Efua said, which is a matter for the Financial Intelligence Center, not just a business dispute. She paused. Give me 48 hours. You have them, Adaeze said. She ended the call. She sat for a moment longer. Then she went back to work, because that was what she did. That was always what she did. Korama Ose was Mensah-Darko's head of finance. He was 39, methodical, the kind of person who found errors in spreadsheets the way other people found patterns in weather. Instinctively, without effort, with the specific pleasure of a mind doing what it was built for. He came into the conference room at 11:15 with a laptop and the careful expression of someone who has been in the building all morning and has heard enough to know that the morning has been unusual. The Acheampong note, Adaeze said without preamble. I need the full file, the original agreement, the repayment confirmation, and the registrar filing from December 2020. Korama opened his laptop. He pulled up the folder. He turned the screen toward her. The filing is timestamped December 9th, 2020, he said. Registered under Article 7C. Permanent extinguishment of conversion rights upon full settlement. Witnessed by 2 commissioners. He paused. It's clean. I know it's clean, she said. What I need to know is whether there is any pathway, any procedural or administrative gap, that a determined legal team could use to challenge the extinguishment. Kurama looked at the screen. He was quiet for a moment. Theoretically, he said carefully, if someone could argue that Article 7C was not properly incorporated into the original note instrument, that it existed only in the supplementary agreement, they could claim the note and the extinguishment were separate instruments and that the note itself retained its conversion provisions. Adaeze looked at him. Is that argument valid? She said. No, he said. The original note instrument has a cross-reference clause on page 4 that explicitly incorporates the supplementary agreement by reference. They are one document in law. He paused. But it's a subtle reference. Easy to miss if you're reading quickly, or if you've only been shown part of the document. Which is what Achiempong showed Kwame's lawyer, Adaeze said. That would be my reading, Kurama said. She looked at the filing on the screen, the specific, complete relief of a woman who has been careful enough, thorough enough, precise enough, who has filed every document and registered every clause and trusted nothing to memory, because she learned early that what is not written does not exist in the spaces where power is contested. Print the full file, she said. 4 copies. I want one with Afua today. I'll have them by 2, he said. He stood to leave. Kurama, she said. He stopped. The 80 million CD project Kwame mentioned. The residential consortium in East Legon. She looked at the window. Find out who the lead investors are. All of them. He looked at her. You're thinking about the 30% reduction, he said. I'm thinking about why someone would call my office to ask if Mensah-Darko was involved before committing to a project led by my ex-husband, she said. And why, when I told them we weren't, they reduced their stake. She paused. That call came from someone who had done their research, someone who understood the difference between what Kwame presents and what he delivers. I'll have the investor list by end of day, Kurama said. He left. Adaeze looked at the documents on the conference table. Kwame's 3 pages, left behind in his departure. The partnership proposal, the equity request, the Achiempong note. She picked them up. She read them again. Not because she had missed anything, because she wanted to understand the full architecture of what he had built. Because understanding it completely was the only way to dismantle it completely. And because she knew, with the specific, practiced certainty of someone who had watched Kwame Darko operate for 9 years, that the morning's visit was not the end of something. It was the beginning. The investor list came at 5:15. Kurama had placed it on her desk, with a single sticky note attached. Second name on the list. Look carefully. She looked. The East Legon Residential Consortium had 7 investors. The second name was Mensah Capital Partners. She read it again. Mensah Capital Partners. Her father's investment vehicle. Solomon Mensah, 71 years old, retired construction magnate, founder of the original Mensah family business that had funded her first studio equipment when she was 25, and asking for a loan she promised to repay in 3 years, and had repaid in 18 months. Her father, who was invested in Kwame Darko's project. She sat with this for a long time. She and her father had not spoken about Kwame since the divorce. Solomon Mensah had been careful in the way of fathers who love their daughters and have learned that involvement in their adult lives requires invitation. He had said at the time of the divorce, "I am here." He had not said anything else. She had not asked for anything else. But he was in this project. which meant someone had approached him, which meant Kwame, or someone on Kwame's behalf, had gone to her father. She picked up her phone. She called her father. He answered in 2 rings the way he always did, like he had been expecting the call, like there was no other thing he could have been doing. "Adaeze," he said, his voice warm, careful, the voice of a man reading the temperature of a conversation before it fully begins. "Papa," she said, "Mensah Capital Partners, the East Legon Consortium." A pause. "You found the list," he said. "Karama found the list," she said. "Tell me." A longer pause. She heard him settle into something. A chair, the specific sound of her father preparing to say something he has been holding. "Kwame came to me 4 months ago," he said. "He presented the project. It looked solid on paper. The numbers were reasonable. I conducted my own due diligence." He paused. "I invested before I knew he had approached your company. I learned about his visit to your office from Abena. She called me the day after." "Abena called you?" Adaeze said. "She was concerned," her father said. "She thought I should know." Adaeze looked at her door. She would have words with Abena. Warm ones. "Papa," she said, "the project. Is it viable without Mensah-Darko's involvement?" "The construction component is viable," her father said. "The sales projections assume a premium positioning that requires an established design brand." He paused. "Without your name on it, the premium positioning is difficult to justify, which affects the per-unit pricing, which affects the returns." "By how much?" "Meaningfully," her father said. "The 30% reduction in commitment you mentioned to barrister Asante Boateng. The investor who reduced was Poku Ventures. They called me before they reduced. They asked if I knew whether you were involved." He paused. "I told them I did not know. I did not lie, but I did not tell the full truth." "And now?" she said. "Now I am telling you," he said. "Because Kwame came to your office this morning to try to take something from you, and I will not have my capital used as leverage in that effort, even indirectly." Adaeze was very still. "You're withdrawing," she said. "I am considering it," he said. "I wanted to speak with you first." She looked at the window. The Accra evening was settling in, the specific golden hour when the city's light turned from bright to warm, and the skyline held its color for exactly long enough to be beautiful before the dark came. "Don't withdraw yet," she said. A pause. "Adaeze, Papa, don't withdraw yet. Give me 1 week." A longer pause. "What are you planning?" he said. "I don't know yet," she said, "but I know what I'm not planning. I'm not planning to let Kwame Darko use your capital and my reputation to build something that puts his name on a project designed on the credibility of mine." She paused. 1 week. Her father was quiet for a moment. 1 week, he said. "But Adaeze, be careful. Careful in the way I taught you to be. Not the way fear teaches you, the way clarity does." "I know, Papa," she said. "Good night, my daughter." "Good night." She ended the call. She sat at her desk as the office quieted around her, the specific, settling sound of a building at the end of its day, computers shutting down, doors closing, the cleaning staff beginning their evening work. She thought about Kwame standing in her reception area that morning, about the suit and the smile and the envelope, about Serwa looking at the office with the eyes of someone who had been brought somewhere as a prop and had realized it mid-scene, about the Akiampong note and the extinguishment clause and the December 2020 filing, about her father's capital sitting in a consortium that Kwame had built partly on the assumption that her name would follow, about the 30% reduction from Poku Ventures, which was a number that told a story. The story of investors who had done their research and understood that without Adaeze Mensah-Darko, The premium positioning of the project was an assertion, not a fact. She thought about all of it. And then, slowly, with the specific, organized clarity of a woman who has spent 17 years making decisions in spaces where clarity is the only reliable resource, she began to understand the shape of what was possible. It was not revenge. She did not think in those terms. It was something more precise. It was the specific, logical consequence of what Kwame had set in motion, a consequence he had not calculated because he had spent 9 years watching her and had still, fundamentally, not seen her. She picked up her phone. She called Efua. "I need to move faster than 48 hours, she said when Efua answered. "I've already started," Efua said. "The Akeampong situation is worse than I thought. He has approached at least 3 parties with that note. 2 declined after due diligence. 1 did not." A pause. "He sold the note claim to a holding company registered in Lomé 6 weeks ago. The holding company's beneficial owner is obscured, but the registered director is someone with known connections to the same infrastructure that collapsed the Tema port development." Adaeze was very still. "Kwame doesn't know this," she said. "Almost certainly not," Efua said. "He believes he is working with Acheampong directly. He does not know Acheampong has already assigned the claim onward." A pause. "Which means Kwame is operating on the basis of an arrangement that no longer exists, as he understands it." "And the holding company in Lomé," Adaeze said. "What do they want with a claim on a design firm?" "That's the question I've been asking," Efua said. "And the answer, I think, is that they don't want the design firm. They want the East Legon project. They want it because it has government-adjacent land approvals that have a secondary value in infrastructure development." A pause. "They intend to use the equity claim on your company as leverage to access the consortium. If they can threaten your position in the company, they threaten the premium brand value. If they threaten the brand value, the consortium weakens. If the consortium weakens, they can acquire distressed stakes at reduced cost." Adaeze said nothing for a moment. "Kwame is the vehicle," she said. "He doesn't know it." "That is my assessment," Efua said. "Then we need to move carefully," Adaeze said. "Because when this unravels, it unravels on everyone in that consortium, including my father." "I know," Efua said. "I've already called the Financial Intelligence Center. They are aware of the Akeampong note movement. They opened an inquiry 6 weeks ago when the Lomé transfer was flagged." A pause. "Adaeze, you need to know something." "Tell me." "The FIC has been building a case around a network of property transactions in Greater Accra that have been used to move money through legitimate development projects," Efua said. "The East Legon Consortium is not the target, but it is adjacent to the network. The inquiry that comes next, it will touch everyone in that consortium." A pause. "Your father needs to withdraw. Now." Adaeze closed her eyes. 1 second. 2. She opened them. "How long before the inquiry becomes public?" she said. "Days," Efua said. "Not weeks." "And Kwame?" "He is going to discover very shortly that the arrangement he thought he had with Acheampong is void, that the note claim he bought has already been assigned to a holding company that is currently under investigation, and that his project is about to be touched by an inquiry that will make every investor in that consortium run." A pause. "He is going to lose everything he built in the last 18 months. Adaeze looked at the window. The Accra night was fully dark now. The city lights had replaced the golden hour. "Does he know?" she said. "Any of it?" "No," Efua said. "He walked into your office this morning believing he was holding a weapon. He did not know the weapon was pointed the wrong direction." Adaeze sat with this. She thought about Kwame at the altar of their marriage, the specific quality of his eyes that day. Present, warm, the genuine version of him that had existed before the success became more important than the truth. She thought about 7 years, about what had been real and what had been performance, about the daughters sleeping at home right now, with her mother watching over them, Ama and Efua, 9 and 7, who deserved a father who could be something other than a lesson in what not to become. She thought about Serwa picking up the business card. Efua, she said, can the FIC inquiry be resolved without public exposure if the parties cooperate fully? A pause. Depending on the level of cooperation and the degree of witting involvement, Efua said carefully. Why? Because there is a 26-year-old woman married to a man who is about to walk off a cliff he cannot see, Adaeze said, and there is my father's capital in a consortium that is about to be damaged by something that was not his doing. She paused. And there is Kwame, who I do not think is wittingly involved in the Lomé network. He is careless and arrogant, and he came to my office this morning to humiliate me. But I do not think he is criminal. What are you suggesting? Efua said. Call me in the morning, Adaeze said. I need to think. She called Kwame at 8 in the evening. He answered on the 4th ring with the wariness of someone who had spent the afternoon recalibrating. Adaeze, he said. Kwame, she said. I need you to listen to me, and I need you to listen carefully, because what I am about to tell you is not something I am telling you for any reason other than that you are the father of my children, and I will not watch you walk into something you do not understand. A silence. What are you talking about? He said. Daniel Akayampong, she said. The note. The arrangement you believe you have. Your lawyer reviewed a partial document, she said. But that is not the issue. The issue is that Akayampong sold the note claim 6 weeks ago. He sold it to a holding company registered in Lomé. That holding company is currently under FIC inquiry as part of a broader investigation into property-related financial flows in Greater Accra. She paused. The East Legon Consortium is adjacent to that inquiry. Every investor in your project is about to receive a visit from the Financial Intelligence Center. Silence. Kwame, she said, you did not build this. You were used as a vehicle by people who knew your name could open doors you did not know you were opening. She paused. I am not saying this to hurt you. I am saying it because you have 48 hours at most to cooperate fully with the FIC before the inquiry becomes public. If you cooperate, you may be able to protect your position. If you wait, you will not. The silence on the other end was different now, not the silence of performance or confidence. The silence of someone standing at an edge they did not know was there. How do you know this? He said. His voice was quiet, the performance completely gone. Because I have spent 17 years building something in this city, and I know how to read what is happening in it, she said. And because my lawyer has been watching the Akayampong note since before you came to my office this morning. You knew, he said. When I came in this morning, you already knew. I knew the note was extinguished, she said. I discovered the Lomé situation this evening. Why are you telling me? He said. Adaeze looked at the dark window, at the city lights, at the reflection of the office she had built, the room behind her, the work on the walls, the company that had survived a marriage and a divorce, and a morning visit from a man carrying leverage that dissolved the moment it was examined carefully. Because Ama asked me last week why you and I can't be in the same room, she said. And I told her that sometimes adults make choices that make rooms complicated. And she looked at me with those eyes, and she said, But you still know him, Mama, right? She paused. I still know you, Kwame. I know the version of you that existed before everything got confused about what mattered. She paused again. Call your lawyer tonight, not Barrister Ose. Get someone with FIC experience. Cooperate fully. And call your investors before the inquiry becomes public, and do it with the truth. A long silence. "The project," he said. "Is it? The project may survive if the cooperation is clean, and the advisory opinion on the Lomé connection supports your witting innocence," she said. "I don't know. That is Ifua's assessment to make, not mine." "Why does it matter to you whether it survives?" he said. "It doesn't," she said. "Your daughters do." The silence after that was the longest one. "I'll call someone tonight," he said. "Good," she said. She ended the call. She sat for a moment. Then she turned off the office light. She drove home in the dark, in the specific familiar quiet of the Accra night, past the lit compounds and the roadside stalls, and the city that had been her context since she was 25 years old, with a bucket under her desk and a refusal to stop. She drove home to her daughters. The FIC inquiry became public 11 days later. It named the Lomé Holding Company and 3 associated entities. It identified the Akiampong note movement as part of a pattern of misrepresented instruments used to gain positions in legitimate development projects. Daniel Akiampong was formally charged. The East Legon Consortium suspended operations pending the inquiry's resolution. Kwame Darko was not charged. He had cooperated, fully, immediately, with the specific humble deficiency of someone who has understood late but has understood completely. His FIC deposition was described by his lawyer as among the most detailed cooperative statements in the inquiry. He had called every investor in the consortium before the inquiry went public, with the truth, without the performance. Solomon Mensah withdrew his capital before the suspension. He called Adaeze the morning after the announcement. "You protected it," he said. "My investment." "I protected my daughter's grandfather," she said. "The investment came with him." A pause. "Adaeze," he said, "I am very proud of you." She said nothing for a moment. "I know, Papa," she said. She did not cry. She was her father's daughter in that way. She saved the tears for later, in private, in the specific honest space that she kept for feelings that were too complete for witnesses. 3 months after the inquiry became public, a portfolio arrived in Mensah-Darko's business development inbox. Sender, Serwa Bempong Darko. Subject, portfolio submission, hospitality interior design. Abena printed it and placed it on Adaeze's desk with the first Monday review folder. Adaeze opened it. She looked at the work. She looked at it for a long time. It was good, not merely competent, genuinely original. A specific, clear visual language informed by Central St. Martin's training and tempered by the particular sensitivity of someone who had spent 2 years watching the world from inside a marriage that had not been what it presented itself as. There was a hospitality project in the portfolio, a guest house renovation in Kumasi, that had the specific composed warmth of a space designed by someone who understood that the most important quality in a room is whether it makes a person feel they are worth being there. Adaeze wrote a note on the cover sheet. She gave it back to Abena. "Call her," she said. "Monday review, 2 o'clock. Serwa came for the interview on a Monday. She came alone. She wore a dress that fit. She sat across from Adaeze in the same conference room where 3 months earlier she had been a prop in her husband's performance. She sat differently now, not nervously, carefully. The specific, considered posture of someone who has decided to show up as herself and is doing it without assistance. Adaeze looked at the portfolio on the table between them. "The Kumasi guest house," she said. "The lighting in the common room. Tell me your thinking." Serwa told her. For 40 minutes, they talked about design. Not about Kwame. Not about the consortium or the inquiry or the morning in this room 3 months ago. About design. About the specific, demanding, endlessly interesting problem of making a space feel like itself. At the end of the 40 minutes, Adaeze closed the portfolio. "We have a hospitality project beginning in February," she said. "A boutique hotel in Adaeze. I need a junior designer with specific hospitality focus." She looked at Serwa. "The position pays a junior rate. You would report to my senior designer, Aqua. The work is demanding, the hours are real, and we do not carry people who do not carry themselves." Serwa looked at the portfolio. "I carry myself," she said. "I know," Adaeze said. "I could see it in the Kumasi project." She paused. "The position is yours if you want it." Serwa was quiet for a moment. "I need to ask you something," she said. "Ask it." "Why?" she said. "After everything, why did you look at my portfolio at all?" Adaeze looked at the window, at the Accra skyline, at the city that had given her everything she had after she had given it everything she had. "Because talent does not belong to the person who is standing next to you," she said. "It belongs to you." She paused. "And because someone did this for me once. A woman in a boutique in Accra who looked at my work and called it real. I was 24 years old, and I had no money and no studio, and she looked at what I made and she said, 'This is real.'" She paused. "That sentence was worth more than the first client she sent me, because it told me what I was working with." She looked at Serwa. "Your work is real. February 3rd, 8 o'clock. Ask for Aqua." Serwa stood. She picked up her portfolio. At the door, she stopped. She turned back. "He told me you were bitter," she said. "Kwame. He told me you hated him, that you were trying to hold him back." Adaeze looked at her. "Is that what you see?" she said. Serwa looked at the room, at the work on the walls, at the woman at the head of the table. "No," she said. "I see someone who was too busy building to have room for hate." She left. The office was quiet. Adaeze sat for a moment. Then she went back to work. 2 years later, the Adaeze Hotel opened. It was reviewed in 3 architecture publications and 2 travel magazines. The common room, the specific luminous common room with the lighting that made every person who walked into it feel they were worth being there, was described in one review as the most thoughtful hospitality interior in the country's recent memory. The designer credited was Serwa Bempong. She had dropped the Darko 6 months earlier, quietly, without announcement. She sent Adaeze a message the morning the review published. "Thank you for the door." I walked through it. Adaeze read it at her desk, in the office that still had the Accra skyline in the window, and the work on the walls and the specific, earned quality of a space built by someone who had never stopped when stopping was the easier option. She wrote back 2 words. "I know. Kwame rebuilt. Slowly." Without the performance this time. Without the suit chosen for the room or the smile deployed for the impression. He took a position as a project manager at a mid-size construction firm. Not founder, not CEO, not the name on the door. The person who delivered what was promised, on time at the cost quoted. He was good at it. He called Adaeze on Ama's 10th birthday, not because the call was required, but because Ama had asked him to, and because he had finally become the kind of person who could do things because his daughter asked, and not because his image required. He said one thing before he hung up. "I understand now," he said. "What I had, what I couldn't see." She said, "Build something, Kwame. Something real, something yours." He said, "I'm trying." She believed him, not because she forgave everything in a single conversation. Because forgiveness is not a moment. It is what happens when you stop carrying something that was never yours to carry. He had humiliated himself. He had been used by people with more patience and less scruple than he had. He had walked into her office with a weapon that dissolved in her hands, and she had called him that evening, not because he deserved it, but because her daughters deserved a father who had been warned in time. That was the whole of it. That was all it needed to be. Mensah Designs, the name she had given the in-house atelier that Adaeze had quietly registered 3 years earlier as a separate creative entity, launched its first commercial collection that same year. Interior textiles, fabric for spaces, gold thread through every piece. The launch was covered by 2 publications. In one photograph, Adaeze stood in the studio with her hands in front of her. The hands she had been using since she was a child, the hands Kwame had called worthless, the hands that had built everything visible in that photograph and everything not visible in it. The caption read, "Founder, designer, architect of her own story." She had not chosen the caption. She had not needed to. That evening, Amma found the article on a friend's phone. She came home and stood in the kitchen doorway while Adaeze was making dinner. "Mama," she said. "Yes, baby." "You're famous." Adaeze laughed. "I'm working," she said. "That's different from famous." Amma came into the kitchen. She leaned against the counter the way she always did when she had something to say and was deciding how to say it. "Daddy showed me the article too," she said. Adaeze looked at her. "He sent it to me this morning," Amma said. "He wrote, 'Your mother built something real. Amma, remember that.'" Adaeze turned back to the stove. She stirred the pot. She blinked once. "Did he?" she said. "Yes," Amma said. A pause. "Is that okay?" Amma said carefully. "That he said that?" Adaeze looked at her daughter. 9 years old, with her father's eyes and her mother's hands, and the specific, particular quality of a child who has been paying close attention to everything and has decided to understand rather than simply react. "Yes, baby," she said. "That's okay." She turned back to the stove. "Set the table," she said. "Dinner's almost ready." Amma went to set the table, and Adaeze stood at the stove in the kitchen of the home she had built, in the city that had given her everything she had given it, with the gold thread of everything she had made running quietly through the fabric of the evening. She had not walked out of Kwame's office with the deed to his company. She had walked out of his morning visit with something better. The confirmation that the thing he had come to take was not takeable. Because what she had built, what was actually hers, was not in any document he could assign or any clause he could convert or any envelope he could carry under his arm into a room and place on a table as leverage. It was in the 31 people who had stayed at their screens that morning. In Adaeze, who had called her father. In Korama, who had found the investor list. In Afua, who had already been watching. In Serwa, who had picked up a card. In a hotel in Adafoa, where every guest felt worth being there. In Amma, setting the table. In Afua, calling from the other room to ask if dinner was ready. In the specific, complete, untakeable architecture of a life built by someone who had never stopped when stopping was easier. Kwame had brought his new wife to her office to humiliate her. She had walked out with something he could never file with the registrar. She had walked out with the proof of what she was worth, and she had always known. She had just been waiting for the morning that proved it to everyone else. If this story stayed with you, if you felt every moment of Adaze's silence, her precision, her grace under pressure, subscribe now and hit the notification bell. Because every story on this channel carries a lesson, and the next one begins the way this one did, with someone being underestimated, for the very last time. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that what you build in silence speaks loudest in the moment that matters. Leave a comment. Tell us the moment that changed everything for you. We will be here. We always will.